Dinosaurs get all the credit for being nightmare fuel. But for most of Earth's history, the ocean was the real horror show. No open space, no traction, no escape. Just armor, claws, and mouths built like machines. Let's meet 4 creatures who make the prehistoric ocean a place you wouldn't want to fall in. First on our list is a predator from a time before sharks ruled the seas, an animal that didn't need teeth to be deadly. About 380 million years ago, during the late Devonian, the open ocean looked nothing like it does today. Coral reefs were rising, early forests were spreading across land, and in the water, vertebrates were just beginning to figure out how to become top predators. One of the most successful was Dunkleosteus. It belonged to a group of early jawed fishes called placoderms, animals whose heads and shoulders were wrapped in solid, bony armor. Only the front half of its body fossilized well, but even that was enough to show this was no ordinary fish. So why is it on our list? Its mouth was unlike anything in the modern ocean. Dunkleosteus didn't have true teeth. Instead, the edges of its jawbones formed sharp, blade-like plates. As these plates met, they rubbed together and kept themselves honed, acting like a set of self-sharpening shears. When it struck, it didn't rely on rows of fangs. It delivered a wide, forceful bite and used those bony blades to slice and process its prey. Fossils show it fed on other fish, including fast-swimming species, and some specimens have been found alongside piles of partially digested bones that were likely regurgitated. There's even evidence of bite marks on other Dunkleosteus fossils, hinting at violent encounters between members of its own kind. For decades, Dunkleosteus was portrayed as a 25-foot shark-like monster, but newer research suggests most adults were probably closer to 11 to 13 feet long. Shorter than once imagined, but much more heavily built, deep-bodied, dense, powerful, not a sleek pursuit predator, but something more like a living battering ram, built for sudden violence. Other older ideas suggest that it might have been slow and sluggish because of its armor. Newer anatomical studies suggest Dunkleosteus had a stiff, powerful front body and strong muscle attachments, traits more consistent with an active swimmer capable of short bursts of speed. This wasn't just another big fish. Dunkleosteus was one of the earliest vertebrate apex predators, proof that long before sharks, long before marine reptiles, evolution had already learned how to build a hunter out of bone, muscle, and blades. And it ruled its world for millions of years. If Dunkleosteus was a nightmare with blades, the next creature is nightmare fuel of a completely different kind, especially if you're not a fan of bugs. Meet Jaekelopterus, a predatory eurypterid, an extinct aquatic arthropod built on a body plan closer to horseshoe crabs and scorpions than anything you'd want to swim with. It lived in the early Devonian, and fossils show up in places that weren't open ocean, more like estuaries, lagoons, and brackish to freshwater environments. Shallow water, low visibility, the kind of place where you don't see a predator until it's already too late. And Jaekelopterus was absolutely not a predator you would want catching you by surprise. The largest species, J. rhenanii, is estimated to have reached roughly 2.3 to 2.6 meters, around 7.5 to 8.5 feet, which would make it one of the largest arthropods ever discovered. That estimate comes from an enormous fossil claw, one chelicera so big it had to be scaled like a weapon rather than a body part. And the claws weren't just for show. Jaekelopterus had enlarged, robust pincers with serrated denticles, adaptations that line up with puncturing, gripping, and holding prey. Some Devonian fish fossils even show puncture wounds that may match the bite mechanics of related forms, suggesting these weren't passive scavengers. They were active hunters. But the most unsettling part might be its eyes. Studies of its compound eyes suggest high visual acuity, even forward overlap, meaning depth perception, predator vision. And the eye structure is similar to modern horseshoe crabs, which are specialized for seeing contrast and edges in low, scattered light. In other words, Jaekelopterus wasn't just big. It was designed to spot movement, close distance, and clamp down fast in water where the prey had nowhere to go. So when people picture a giant sea scorpion, they imagine a monster cruising through an ancient ocean. The reality might be worse, because this thing wasn't waiting in the deep sea, it was hunting the shallows. If you hate bugs, don't relax yet, because next on our list is the centipede alien hybrid you never asked for. This tiny creature is called Hallucigenia, and it lived more than 500 million years ago during the Cambrian period, a time when complex animal life was still experimenting with what bodies could even look like. Hallucigenia wasn't large. Most individuals were only a few centimeters long. But size isn't what makes it disturbing. It's the design. Its body was a thin, tubular shape, walking on multiple pairs of soft, stubby legs. Rising from its back were long, rigid spines, like a row of defensive stakes. It looks less like an ancestor of modern animals, and more like something a science fiction artist would sketch after being told to make it uncomfortable. And for years, scientists got it completely wrong. When Hallucigenia was first described, it was reconstructed upside down and backwards. Researchers thought it walked on its stiff spines like stilts, while its actual legs were mistaken for tentacles waving in the air. The head was placed on the wrong end, and no one could figure out how it was supposed to eat. It took better fossils and decades of reanalysis to realize the animal had been flipped. The spines were armor, the soft appendages were walking legs, and one end held a small head with simple eyes and a mouth lined with tiny teeth. Hallucigenia wasn't an apex predator. It wasn't chasing anything down like Dunkleosteus or Jaekelopterus. What makes it unsettling is something else entirely. It shows us that early animal evolution didn't follow familiar patterns. Life wasn't just scaling up and getting more efficient. It was trying out body plans that look completely alien to us now, leaving behind fossils that feel less like ancestors and more like prototypes that were quietly retired. For a time, a long time ago, Hallucigenia was another nightmare-inducing animal walking across the sea floor. Next on our list, we're going from evolution's weird experiments to one of the most powerful predators the oceans have ever seen. Meet Mosasaurus, a giant marine creature that ruled the seas at the very end of the age of dinosaurs. So what technically was it? It wasn't a dinosaur, it wasn't a crocodile, and it definitely wasn't a whale. Mosasaurus was a squamate, a distant relative of modern monitor lizards and snakes that fully adapted to life in the ocean. And it got big. The largest species, Mosasaurus hoffmanii, likely reached around 11 to 12 meters long, possibly more, making it one of the biggest marine reptiles of the Cretaceous. Not the oversized monster from the movies, but still a 40-foot predator built entirely for hunting. Its body was streamlined, with 4 paddle-like limbs for steering and a powerful tail ending in a crescent-shaped fluke, more like a shark than a sea snake. This tail did most of the work, driving Mosasaurus forward in strong, sweeping strokes. But the real weapon was the head. Its skull was built to handle enormous forces, with strong jaw muscles and rows of sharp, cutting teeth designed to slice through flesh. And like many mosasaurs, it also had extra teeth on the roof of its mouth, pterygoid teeth, which helped grip struggling prey and pull it deeper into the throat. Fish, sharks, squid, sea turtles, other marine reptiles, even smaller mosasaurs. Fossils show bite marks on turtle shells and bones of prey found inside mosasaur skeletons, proving it tackled large, tough animals. It hunted near the surface of warm, shallow seas that once covered much of the world, including the famous Western Interior Seaway that split North America in two. For millions of years, Mosasaurus sat near the top of the marine food web. Then, 66 million years ago, the asteroid struck. The same impact that ended the dinosaurs on land collapsed ocean food chains, and even a predator this powerful couldn't survive when the base of the ecosystem disappeared. Mosasaurus was a true sea monster and one of the last great rulers of the prehistoric oceans. Prehistoric oceans weren't just full of sharks. They were ruled by armored fish with self-sharpening jaws, 8-foot sea scorpions with crushing claws, tiny, alien-looking walkers from evolution's strangest phase, and massive marine reptiles built like living weapons. They were real animals, separated by hundreds of millions of years, each one perfectly adapted to its world, and each one proof that the oceans have always been where evolution pushes the limits. And as strange as today's deep sea might feel, it's nothing compared to what's already been here. If you enjoyed this dive into prehistoric ocean life, hit like so more people can discover these incredible animals, and subscribe for more real creatures that sound completely made up. And if you want to keep exploring, check out my recent videos on prehistoric sharks and other giant ancient predators like Titanoboa.